relationship, I cheated on him with a close family friend. I had started taking him for granted, and it became easy to cheat because I didn't value the relationship. He broke up with me and we were split for months. In the times I was single, I realized he is a great BF. I begged for him back and he took me back, but I had to promise to never speak to the guy again. I'm happy to say I never cheated since then and haven't been tempted at all. I understand how great of a partner I have. That being said, the guy I cheated on was a close family friend, and recently I rekindled our friendship behind his back. Nothing romantic. Have you ever met someone who is a terrible partner but a great friend? That's him. I hated the fact that I let a stupid mishap ruin our friendship. My fiancé found out and was angry. I apologized and we talked, and he needed space. He sent me a text of his demands to continue the relationship, and I copied and pasted it. His text: after doing some thinking, I can't trust you. Whether it was platonic or not, this is the second time that I know of where I have violated my trust. The hardest part isn't this, but now I have to wonder, how many times have you violated my trust or done something behind my back that I just don't know about? You claim this is it, but how can I believe you? I love you and want to work on this relationship, but it's going to require a lot from you. We are postponing our wedding indefinitely. When we first got back together, it took 10 months before I felt secure in the relationship again. I have no idea how long it will take to feel secure again. Eli, I changed the name. Will be blocked on everything, and you're to never speak to him again. This now includes family events. If you know he will be there, do not attend. If you didn't know and he attends, you are to ignore him. I have unrestricted access to phones, social media, emails, etc. Every password I want to know for any device you have. No hanging out with male friends alone. You are to be home by 1 if you do go out with your homegirls. There will be more, but these are my demands and they aren't up for discussion. If you aren't willing to do it, then the relationship is over. Take your time to think about it. End of text. I called him, but he said he's not arguing with me about it and won't call him back until I decide what I want to do. I feel that this is extremely harsh considering the fact I didn't cheat this time. Ever since we got back together, I never cheated on him. OP believes that the punishment is too far. I think I was wrong, but I feel that the punishment doesn't fit the crime. I made a horrible mistake years ago. Being friends with someone doesn't equal sign cheating. Even though I was wrong for going behind his back, OP is convinced to follow her BF's rules. Okay, I'll do it. I just needed to make sure he wasn't going too far, but if this is what it takes to rebuild his trust. When commenters say that OP is on her way to cheat on her BF again, she claims, "You don't think I'll follow his rules?" Good thing I don't let people tell me what I can't do. I'm going to be laughing when we work through this, get married and have kids. Update 1. We had a really great conversation and he was vulnerable and said it made him feel like I didn't value him. He was crying and it really hurt me to see the pain I caused him. He told me that please let's not go forward with this unless I can promise that I won't go behind his back again because he can't go through this pain again. I told him that I promise I will never hurt him again and will always be honest and upfront with him now. We talked about the rules and he said they will be temporary and will be adjusted when we go to couples therapy. Now it's time to put in the work to repair the relationship. I know it will be a lot of work, but I'm prepared. Update 2. So next month I'll get married this fall. I was with an amazing guy and we worked through a lot of issues together. I thought I loved him and I think I still do, but not in love with him. About 3 months ago at my job, we got a new coworker who was very handsome and extremely attractive. I mean, I have never been so physically attracted to someone in my life. We started to deepen our friendship, but romantic feelings came. I repressed mine, but to my surprise he confessed his feelings to me as well. I told him we gotta think about our spouses, but our feelings continue to grow. He told me he stopped being affectionate with his wife because he feels like he is cheating on me when he does that. He only wants to be affectionate with me. I've started doing the same thing and haven't been intimate with my partner. The big thing is a lot of people will be hurt when this comes out. He can't divorce his wife right away because of finances, but he will as soon as possible. I have to call off the wedding, but I really don't want to hurt my current fiancé. When asked about her previous infidelity, OP says, "I have cheated before and I'm starting to realize it's because I didn't understand being in love. With the guy I'm seeing, we both aren't romantic with our current partners. I don't want to be with anyone but him. Also, he's going to divorce his wife. We have a plan for when his finances get straight. How is she justifying this affair? This is completely different. The first time I cheated was because I was selfish. This time it was because I fell in love with someone else. I didn't choose this. No one picks who they love. This whole experience has taught me how complex love is and that I've never been in love before. This is so hard on OP. That's not fair. I didn't want any of this to happen. It breaks my heart that I'm going to have to call off the wedding, but he's a great guy and I'm certain he will find someone else. I wish I loved him or didn't fall in love with someone else. Because life is more complicated than that. I don't want to hurt him and have been thinking, oh, the best way to tell him. You guys act like this doesn't hurt for me too. You guys are not being understanding or empathetic. When commenters tell OP she's gullible about the married guy, she keeps emphasizing, I'm going to tell my fiance. But we can't tell the other guy's wife yet. He's trying to get his finances in order first. Update 3. I took everyone's advice and decided to end things with my fiance. This was the hardest thing I had to do in my life. I know you guys think I'm a terrible person, but this is an unimaginable situation to find yourself in. I want everyone to know how much this hurts. I really wish I didn't fall in love with someone else. I wish I could make myself fall in love with my fiance, but I can't. It took me so long to accept this. I hope you guys can understand that I can't convey this enough, that I care about my ex-fiance. I know this will be best for both of us, even though it's hard right now. When asked if OOP told her ex-fiance the truth, she says, I didn't lie. I told him the truth, that I fell in love with someone else. I told him I still care about him. I keep telling you all that I care about him and would never use him as backup. He's a great guy and there's a woman out there who will love him and be lucky to have him. There's no reason we both can't be happy. When commenters tell OOP that there is no way the married man is going to leave his wife for her, she says he is going to divorce his wife. Unfortunately, divorce is extremely complicated, but he said he will keep me updated. It's not just finances, but a lot of other legal stuff. Since I wasn't married yet, it was easy to end things. For him, it's a lot more complicated than that. When commenters continue to call OOP gullible, she says, no, I was very clear in our conversation today that I want this figured out by the end of the year. That's plenty of time for him to figure out finances and legal stuff. That way by 2025 we can just focus on each other. Update 4. I realize I treated my fiance horrible and received my karma. My coworker and his wife are getting a divorce because she found out he was cheating with multiple women. Plural, he's a disgusting animal. He lied to me and others pretending that we were the only ones. I ended things with him. I'm glad he's been exposed. Now, regarding my ex-fiance, I've taken the time to reflect and realize he's actually my true love. I hate that I hurt him. I reached out again to him, but he said he will always love me, but he's done with me. That was painful to hear. I just can't get over what my coworker did in destroying multiple relationships, including mine. It's painful to see and experience. Edit. I wasn't clear, but I take responsibility for my actions. Just because I'm condemning his disgusting and manipulative behavior doesn't mean I'm justifying my actions. My actions were horrible, but I've learned from them. I was excited to meet my sister's wife, but she was cold and unfriendly. She avoids talking to me but was happy and chatty with others. December 17, 2017. Using a throwaway account for privacy. Sorry if this gets long. My sister, a lesbian, married her wife a year ago. They get financial support from our wealthy and generous parents, have good jobs, and have decided to have a baby. Her wife is visiting for the holidays and is about 6 months pregnant. Since I'm in college, I don't get to see them very often, but my parents help me out financially, so it's fair. I'm eagerly looking forward to meeting their new baby. My sister and her wife have been together since their senior year of college and were friends since childhood. I'm 7 years younger, so I was kind of out of the loop. I didn't really get to know my sister's wife until they got married, and even then, I was busy with my first year of college. I was really looking forward to this trip to spend some one-on-one time with her. Our parents live about 2 hours from my sister and her wife, and I flew in from across the country. We're all staying with our parents, who are not yet retired. My flight got in late last night, so I slept in. My parents went to work, my sister went shopping, and my sister-in-law stayed in, but I didn't realize she was around until she came downstairs while I was making lunch. She's obviously pregnant, and I haven't seen her since the wedding, so I was really excited to see her. She wasn't. I said hi and went to hug her, but she backed away. I apologized, and she just looked at me weirdly and went through the fridge. I tried to make small talk, asking when she was due. She gave me a weird look like I'd asked something inappropriate, then just said March and kept making her food. I said I was excited to have a niece or nephew and asked if she wanted a boy or girl. She sighed loudly, said she didn't care, and moved on. My sister had mentioned her wife had PTSD from a previous pregnancy, so I thought that might be it. I tried changing the subject and asked about her work. She set her knife down loudly, stared at me for 30 seconds, then said fine, and went to the dining room. Throughout the day, I kept trying to interact with her. I offered to get her a drink. She muttered no. I asked what she was watching. She said, "You wouldn't know it. It was The Simpsons." I said I was glad she was spending the holidays with us. She begrudgingly said, "Yeah." I thought maybe this was just her personality. Then my parents and sister came home, and she was super cheerful and nice to them. My dad asked if they had names picked out, and she wouldn't stop talking. My sister wanted a family name, and her wife wanted a unique name. My mom suggested my name, Anais, since it's uncommon but a family name, same as my grandmother. I said I wouldn't mind having a niece with my name, and my sister was enthusiastic. Her wife gave me a death glare. At dinner, I asked if she could pass the potatoes, and she ignored me. I repeated myself, and my sister had to tell her. She then giggled and said, "Guess I didn't hear." What should I do? Should I tell my sister or confront her wife directly? I have good relationships with my parents and sister and want to be involved with my niece and nephew, so I don't want to go no contact. How can I resolve this? Too long, didn't read. My sister's pregnant wife is cold and short with me. What should I do? Update, as of this morning. This morning at breakfast, my sister-in-law actually spoke to me, but it wasn't positive. She asked if I was seeing anyone, in a snarky tone. I said no, I'm busy with school. She responded, "Well, not everyone finds someone." My sister changed the subject, asking my parents about their winter home. My sister-in-law was so nice to them, saying how gorgeous the house is and how grateful she was for the vacation she and my sister took there last month. My mom started gushing about her, and it was a mush fest. After breakfast, I took our dogs for a walk. When I came back, my parents and sister had gone shopping, and my sister-in-law was home alone. She asked how I liked college. I said I liked it and started talking about my pre-dental major. She rolled her eyes. I apologized for oversharing and she said, "No, it's fine, you just have a problem with reading the room, I guess." Then she walked away. When my sister comes home, I'm definitely going to tell her about this. OP clarified why her sister-in-law might not like her. There was one incident regarding her wedding that comes to mind. Initially, the wedding was scheduled on the day of my finals, before invitations were produced or mailed. I called my sister to tell her that I either couldn't make it or the date would have to be changed. She was really upset because she and her wife had wanted a winter wedding, and the date seemed perfect for them. I suggested they didn't have to sacrifice the winter aspect, just maybe move it a day back. We had a big fight, and I assume my sister-in-law was involved, but my sister, who likes to be liked, didn't want to stay mad at me, so we worked through it. The wedding ended up being the day after my finals, which I was grateful for, and there's been no resentment or hard feelings since. My sister actually laughs at herself now for being kind of unreasonable. Her quote from that time was, "You just don't have to go, it's just a test." I was my sister's maid of honor, and I didn't see much of my sister-in-law prior to the wedding. She'd gotten food poisoning from her bachelorette party, so she was kind of holed up for the majority of the pre-wedding hubbub. During the reception, I made a toast, talked about my sister and her wife's friendship, how we've just been waiting for the two of them to get married, they're a match made in heaven, etc., etc. She teared up, gave me a big hug and said she was excited to be my sister-in-law. I wanted to talk more with her, but some relatives wanted to ask me why I chose the college I did, so I went to go talk to them. I'm probably going to bring this up with my sister either today or tomorrow. I'll probably bring this up with my sister either today or tomorrow, depending on what my sister-in-law is up to. Highlight comments. Commenter. So you said that the longest time you spent with her was camping, from a previous comment, and the wedding. Could you elaborate on the wedding? Did you interact with her at all? Were you at your sister's bridal party? But I agree with other commenters, you've just got to talk to your sister and/or parents to see what can change to make this better for the rest of your stay. OP, there was one thing I might be able to think of in terms of her wedding. It was initially scheduled on the day of my finals. This was prior to invitations being produced and mailed, just their idea. So I called my sister to tell her I either wouldn't make it or the date would have to be changed. She was really upset about it, because she and her wife had wanted a winter wedding. The date seemed perfect for them, etc. I said they didn't have to sacrifice the winter aspect, just maybe move it a day back. There was a kind of big fight, and I can assume my sister-in-law got in on it, but my sister is the kind of person who likes to be liked. Think of her as a human golden retriever. And she didn't want to be mad at me, so we worked through it. Her wedding ended up being the day after my finals, which I was grateful for, and there's been no resentment or hard feelings since. My sister actually laughs at herself for being kind of an ass. Her choice quote from that time was, "You just don't have to go, it's just a test." I was my sister's maid of honor, and I didn't see much of my sister-in-law prior to the wedding. She'd gotten food poisoning from her bachelorette party, so she was kind of holed up for the majority of the pre-wedding hubbub. During the reception, I made a toast, talked about my sister and her wife's friendship, how we've just been waiting for the two of them to get married, they're a match made in heaven, etc. etc. She teared up, gave me a big hug and said she was excited to be my sister-in-law. I wanted to talk more with her, but some relatives wanted to ask me why I chose the college I did, so I went to go talk to them. I'm probably going to bring this up with my sister either today or tomorrow. It all depends on what my sister-in-law is up to. Commenter. Even if this is the underlying issue, and sister-in-law was annoyed by OP's attempts to make conversation, sister-in-law is still being an asshole. She's 26, old enough to have the self-control to say, "Sorry, OP, I want some time alone right now. I'm not really up for talking." She's allowed to feel irritated, but being pregnant doesn't give her the excuse to be rude without apologizing. My direct advice, OP, is to scale back your interactions with your sister-in-law. You can still be polite. It will highlight the drastic difference between the way you treat her and the way she treats you. Every time you make an effort to be friendly, she mocks you and belittles you. You deserve better, but it's also not your responsibility to earn decent behavior from her. Focus on those who return your friendliness, like your sister and parents. Next time you're home alone with your sister-in-law, try doing solo activities like reading or playing video games to pass the time. Update, recovered through Reddit. December 20th, 2017. So I didn't get the chance to talk to my sister. When my parents came back from shopping with my sister, my mom started saying how she had the perfect onesie for her granddaughter. Before my sister-in-law could start gushing, I asked what my mom meant. She asked if I hadn't heard I'd be having a niece, and I replied I hadn't. My sister said it was weird, because she'd asked her wife to tell me once they'd gotten the ultrasound. Her wife had zero excuse, and had the most deer-in-the-headlights reaction. There was something that just sort of snapped, and I started crying. I felt kind of spoiled and horrible for it, so I apologized, and went upstairs with the dogs. My parents came upstairs, and my mom went to ask if I was okay, and my sister and her wife started shouting downstairs. My mom basically said that my sister-in-law does not like me and that it wasn't really my fault. She's just bad with people she doesn't know, and took it out on me inappropriately. And yes, my sister-in-law was still pissed about the wedding date thing, which just made it worse. I felt really shitty and just like really bad. Part of it wasn't my fault, but part of it was my fault. And apparently my sister knew about both issues beforehand, and had given my sister-in-law directions to try and get along with me. They were still shouting downstairs, and I was kind of bordering on a meltdown, so I asked my mom if we could take the dogs for another walk. We went out the back, and when we came home my sister had left the house to cool down, and her wife was upstairs. I spent most of the rest of the day downstairs, until my sister came home. She had obviously been crying and was in a bad mood. My mom took her into the kitchen to try and calm her down, so I kept sitting in the living room. I felt like a bratty little kid again. Like, I genuinely felt like I'd fucked up my sister's marriage and probably ruined our relationship in the process too. Everything just felt awful. And when my sister came out of the kitchen, she didn't even look at me. Just went storming back upstairs. Her wife started yelling first, and they were fighting for a while before it got quieter upstairs. My mom, dad and I went out for dinner, and when we came home my sister-in-law was waiting for us. My sister-in-law apologized to me, saying she had been petty and rude, and that the wedding date thing had been a non-issue. I said it was okay if she was upset about the wedding thing, but I wish she had let me know. She said it wasn't that easy, since my sister would basically take a bullet for me, and it had caused them a big fight before their wedding. I said I had no idea and that I was sorry to be the source of the tension, and I just wanted to be able to be a good sister-in-law myself and be a good aunt. My sister-in-law got angry and said I had ruined the opportunity for the first one, and she wasn't banking on the second one. Then she stormed upstairs, and she and my sister got into another big fight. I felt awful. The bad feelings manifested physically, and I spent most of the night throwing up while my sister and her wife fought. My mom was really kind to stay up with me, and my dad tried to get my sister and her wife to get off each other's backs. I specifically heard my sister-in-law shouting, "Who would you jump in front of a train for, me or her?" And my sister responded without missing a beat, "My sister, no questions asked." They got quieter after that, and my sister-in-law started screaming about an hour later saying, "I'd let all my siblings die for you." My sister slept on the couch, and the two of us went out for breakfast in the morning. She basically said that after my sister-in-law gave birth, she and my sister were going to separate. They would try counseling prior to the birth, and afterwards too, but if things weren't getting better, they'd be divorcing. I said that it shouldn't have gotten that far, and I was sorry for pushing both of them. My sister said that my sister-in-law does this to all my sister's friends, and they've been fighting often. But she clarified that the way she treated me was a deal breaker. She said it might have sounded sad, but I was her best friend from birth, and she wouldn't let me not feel welcome like that. I felt really guilty and started crying again. She kept saying she wanted it this way, their relationship was broken as is, etc. It's been tense and awkward ever since. My sister-in-law won't look at me or speak to me, and I've given up. My sister has been by my side a lot, and has amped up the good sister behavior 10x. I feel like shit, everything is really terrible, and I'm sure I'm going to be making another post during the actual Christmas bullshit. Not a great update, but there we are. Too long, didn't read. My sister and her wife are separating because of my sister-in-law's behavior towards me. Spot on comments. Commenter. The sister says her wife treats all her friends that way. Isn't that classic jealous abuser behavior, trying to isolate them from friends? I guess the parents get a pass because they're rich and are giving money. Replier. Yeah, that is exactly what I think it is. As the other comment said, she isolated her sister from her friends and tried to isolate her from her sister. She was only being nice to the parents because they are wealthy and she wants to keep her hand in the money pot. Other commenter. Hey, sister says her wife treats all her friends that way. Isn't that classic jealous abuser behavior, trying to isolate them from friends? Yes, it absolutely is, as seen time and time again in the posts on this subreddit. Sorry to hijack your comment, but I just want to give a small public service announcement to anyone reading this. If your partner is acting even 1/4 the way that this sister-in-law is acting, then you either need to get out or find some way to shut that shit down as soon as possible. This behavior does not magically go away with time and will only grow as you sit and stay quiet hoping it'll blow over. Remember, for your sake, if your partner is trying to drive a wedge between you and your family or friends, they are planning on making sure you depend solely on them either emotionally and/or financially, so you can't get away from them when you realize and it's become too late. Please make sure to keep some kind of relationship with someone reliable and dependable in your life besides your partner, so you always have an escape in a worst-case scenario. Don't get trapped. Am I the A for not letting my stepson 12 live with us? I don't want anyone to interfere in my life, and the child is unnecessary in my marriage. I have 2 boys, 10 male and 5 male, and I'm getting married in the next few weeks to my boyfriend who has a 12 son from a previous relationship. My future husband's son asked his dad if he could come live with us after we get married because he wants to experience a genuine family dynamic with parents and siblings, given that his biological parents never married anyone else. My husband is on board with this idea, believing it would contribute positively to the boy's personal growth. I expressed to my husband that I have reservations about having him live with us, based on observations during the weekends he spends at our place. Firstly, he appears to have a strained relationship with my younger son. He rarely includes him in activities unless I specifically prompt him to do so. When I ask him to assist the younger boy, such as accompanying him to the bathroom, he does so with obvious reluctance. Secondly, he displays an excessive competitive streak towards my older son. He consistently aims to outperform him, and even taunts him when he succeeds. I find this overly competitive atmosphere uncomfortable. I desire my children to grow up in a nurturing and supportive environment. The third and most significant concern is his academic and behavioral performance. My boyfriend has informed me that his son has been struggling academically and has faced minor behavioral challenges. I am concerned about his potential negative influence on my children, particularly my older son. My husband dismisses these concerns as typical for his age, believing that with our guidance, he could improve. I sought advice from my mother, and she disagrees with me, asserting that providing a united family environment could greatly benefit my stepson. Both of them label my reasons as unreasonable. Am I the A? Edit. Many people didn't quite catch the bathroom example I provided. Let's say we're at a park. I can't let my 5-year-old go to the bathroom alone, so I might have my stepson accompany him for safety reasons. It's the kind of thing an older child should do for a younger one. Update. I know that I am not the best person, but I never mistreated or ignored my future stepson. I care for him, and I would never think of hurting him. I realize now that I was being overly protective of my own children and not considering things from my future stepson's perspective. I was afraid that my future stepson might bully my kids, For example, excluding the younger one from activities he enjoys like building with Legos or teasing the older one when he wins. But now I can see that if he wants to live with us, it's because he cares about his future siblings. Moreover, as a responsible adult, I understand that I have an obligation to help him with behavior and school grades. I talked to my boyfriend, and I accept that he can come live with us. Now we'll need to move to a new house so that each child can have their own room, and we'll have to work on getting custody. Relevant comments. Info on stepson's mom. Unfortunately, my stepson is the result of a one-night relationship, not a marriage. My fiancé said he even tried to have a dating or more serious relationship with her, but she declined. She has always had custody of the boy, and she has never been married. It's just her and the boy. I work remotely, so even though I have work obligations, I'll be the one providing more assistance to the children. I don't see it as a problem, even with one more child. He lives with his mom, who has full custody. He seeks my fiancé to ask if he can live with us because he wants to have a family with siblings. I don't know his mom very well. I only met her a few times, like on his birthday. After the update, we're going to talk to him and his mom tonight. I'm going to tell him that our house is his home, and he's more than welcome here. We're going to say that we are even planning to move to a new house to give him his own room. But it also depends on the conversation with his mom. My fiancé thinks we won't have any issues. OP is voted You're the A. This sums up the majority opinion well. You're the A. You're marrying his father, so you should start considering him as your son as well. If your eldest son, 10 male, started displaying all these behaviors, then surely you wouldn't just kick him out and give up on him. I would get your BF on board with ways to deal with the behaviors that you're not happy with. Update post. I initially want to thank the comments that helped me understand that I was in the wrong. I learned that I was being extremely selfish, only looking out for my own children and my fear that they might somehow face bullying at home, but I wasn't considering the feelings of my stepson. I've also learned that the dynamics between siblings, something I never experienced, inevitably involve a bit of competition and rivalry. I was so focused on myself and my kids that I couldn't see that if he wants to live with us, then obviously he cares about us, especially the idea of having siblings. So I hope we will work together to build a great dynamic in our house. I talked to my fiancé, even showed him this Reddit post, and told him that I agree our stepson should live with us, that I was wrong about my reservations concerning the boy. He talked to the mother of my stepson, who has legal custody of him. I didn't participate in the conversation, as I understand it's a moment for the biological parents. Despite being reluctant, after hearing from her own child that he wanted to live with us, she agreed to work out an arrangement where he will spend a significant amount of time with us. My fiancé and the boy's mother will still have to discuss the details. After that, my fiancé and I took my stepson out to eat his favorite burger and talked. I told him that we're happy to have him as a new member of our household, that we're going to look for a new house to better accommodate the family now that we'll be 5, and he can have his own room. He was very happy. We didn't address some concerns that I still have, like the issue of discipline and following rules. I avoided that topic so it doesn't seem like I'm threatening him to go back to living with his mom. I want him to feel accepted unconditionally in our home. But of course, we'll have that conversation about discipline with the older two soon to prevent any issues, and also emphasize the importance of maintaining good grades in school. P.S. There's no need for anyone here to send me messages cursing me out. I've received dozens of offensive messages, and it doesn't help anyone. I've also received supportive messages with advice, and I appreciate those messages. The internet and this community don't need to be a place for hate. Relevant comments. You need to discuss discipline as soon as possible to be on the same page. I'm aware of that. This issue has always been one of the key points for me. I always believe that when a child is disciplined by a step-parent, they might perceive it as unfair, which can significantly impact the relationship between the child and the step-parent. However, we've discussed making a list of rules and the corresponding consequences for breaking each rule, so I hope that no one feels unjustly treated. If something comes up that isn't on the list, then the decision will need to be a joint one between me and my fiancé. OP's stance. I've always told my fiancé that if my stepson came to live with us, then it would be for the rest of our lives, as my stepson isn't an object that we can return for some reason. I've always had that very clear. He was always a member of the household, you're the new one. Honestly, I think the issue here is just the choice of words. When I said member of our household, my fiancé and my stepson understood that I was referring to him becoming a new resident of the house, as he didn't live here before. Regardless of whether you agree or not, the fact is that he lived at his mother's house, and in practice was a visitor at ours. Of course, I did everything to make him feel that our house was also his, but there's a difference between living here and spending weekends. I never meant to say that he wasn't a part of the family. I've always treated him as a family member. This is a part I haven't quite grasped yet. Many people talk as if I treat my stepson poorly. When my husband read the comments on the other post, he told me not to worry, because I treat his son very well, and I think it's obvious that if I mistreated him, he wouldn't want to live with me. So, where does this idea come from that I treat him poorly? I know that when I said that I didn't want him living with us sounds rude. But there is a huge difference between how you treat a kid and what you discuss with your fiancé. Further info on the housing situation. It's still his own house. I completely agree with this, which is why I mentioned that I did everything to make him feel like the house was his too. But there's an aspect I didn't mention, and perhaps it's another reason for my choice of words. My fiancé is moving into the house I live in with my kids, so chronologically, it makes sense for me to refer to it as my house, and say that my stepson is a new member of it. Of course, from his perspective, we are the new members of his family. Child's perspective is very different and very insightful. Yes, that's true. The best I can do is treat my stepson the same way I treat my own children. And I don't believe there have been any instances where I treated him differently. In fact, I realized I was expecting behaviors from him similar to those of my older son, without considering his different experiences, which made me unfair to him. Does stepson have his own room? Are you spending enough time with him? This is a very important point. I completely agree that it's crucial for children of divorced parents to understand that they have two homes, and to have their personal belongings in both. The thing is, we've been gradually adapting over time. First I got to know my stepson, then he got to know my kids, and then they started spending more time together, until it got to the point where he practically spends every weekend here, even though legally, my fiancé only has custody every other weekend. He always had his things at his dad's house. But my house is bigger and my fiancé is moving in here. Unfortunately, my house only has 3 bedrooms, mine and 1 for each child. So he was left without his own space. When he comes over, he has to sleep in my older son's room. So in reality, he's been kind of like a visitor, you know? That's the reason I'm looking for another house. I want to give him his own space, just like my kids have theirs. Yes. I understand that my stepson isn't in the best situation right now. We were already looking to move to a new house after getting married, regardless of whether he would come to live with us or not, precisely because of this issue. But we were both planning to sell our houses to buy the new one, so it would still take several months. Now, we'll be renting a house in the next few weeks. Since we were already exploring the real estate market, we already know of a house that we like. Clarifying the bathroom example above. I never used him for free childcare. I was unfortunate in the example I gave about the bathroom, but I'll explain again what happens. We have a young child who's 5 years old. I can't expect a 5-year-old to behave in a mature, appropriate manner at all times, but I can expect the older ones, aged 10 and 12, to understand that the 5-year-old is a little child who doesn't yet grasp various situations. So, for instance, if the older 2 are playing video games for an hour without letting the little one join in, it's obvious they need to stop and let the little one play a bit too. Otherwise, the little one will feel sad and angry, think that his siblings don't like him, and so on. I'm not asking them to play with the little one all the time, but to look at the situation from the little one's perspective so as not to hurt him. In the bathroom situation I mentioned last time, it was just me, my stepson, and my youngest son. When my youngest son is with any of the boys, he refuses to go to the bathroom with me. That day, he was practically on the verge of tears, not wanting to go with me and wanting to go with his brother. So in my view, my stepson, upon seeing the boy almost in tears over a trivial situation, should have understood he should help to prevent him from actually crying. But he only helped after I insisted a lot. Anyway, I believe my stepson will grasp this dynamic soon, just like my older son already does. You need to adjust your expectations. You need to adjust your expectations. You are correct. Am I the A for insisting my son call his grandmother Mrs. Smith instead of Grandma because she refuses to accept me as family? Original post, September 3, 2020. My relationship with my mother-in-law, Mrs. Smith, is crap. She's cold to me because I kept my last name, Miller. She says I'll treat her like family when she wants to be part of it. She calls me Jake's friend. My husband Jake loves me all the same. He doesn't bother standing up to her because it's a way for her to start a fight. We rarely talk to her. She makes no effort. Neither do we. Jake and I had discussed whose last name our kid would have prior to the birth. He initiated the conversation. I'd left the decision up to him. After the birth, the families visited the hospital. Jake asked what our son's last name was going to be. I told him it was still his choice. He smiled and said, "Little baby Miller, I like it." He filled out the paperwork. Mother-in-law looked livid. She started asking questions, but my dad started crying. Both of my brothers have died. Dad has never mentioned it, but I know passing the last name down makes him happy. Neither Jake nor I anticipated this, nor did it for this reason, but it was sweet all the same. After she left, mother-in-law let people know what I had done and how now she wouldn't feel like a grandmother. A month later, a sister-in-law announced her pregnancy. Mother-in-law said, "Finally, I'll feel like a grandmother." Again, my husband didn't say anything, neither did I. Our son started talking. During a video call, where my mother-in-law did nothing but gush about sister-in-law's daughter, who is adorable, Jake was trying to get the baby to talk. Son lost interest. I took son, and Jake let mother-in-law ramble some more before ending the call. Mother-in-law said she wanted to say bye to son. Jake turned the phone. Mother-in-law said, "Say bye to Grandma, make son say it, I'm Grandma now." I snapped inside, so I said, "Say bye, Mrs. Smith." My mother-in-law's face dropped. Jake turned the camera away and said bye quickly. He laughed, said I was awesome, but we better put our phones on silent. The only call to text I responded to was the other sister-in-law, who said I didn't need to go out of my way to be nasty. That mother-in-law went around saying how excited she was about son, lie. That her initial comments were understandable because I talked Jake out of tradition, I did not, and that I'd hurt mother-in-law. Mother-in-law needed time to adjust. I said thank you for your input. Mother-in-law texted eventually saying I'd really upset her. I said here I was trying to respect the importance you feel to last names. You've said multiple times I'm not family because of my last name. You made it more than clear that's the reason my child doesn't make you feel like a grandma. Now you'll be known as Mrs. Smith. She said sorry. She didn't mean it that way, but that my dad's reaction was an example of how important last names are. I now had to forgive her because of my family. It made me angrier that she brought my dad into this, and I can't tell if I'm being the asshole or not. Edit. Thank you again to everyone who gave awards. It was very kind of you and I do appreciate it. Jake is home and I had him read the post. Some of you really cracked him up. Some made good points which we have discussed. Apparently, he also got a text from his sister and asked how much money she got from mother-in-law for telling me off. He also made sure to tell sister-in-law who had the baby that we hold nothing against her, should mother-in-law try to spin it that way. She knows mother-in-law better. Jake would also like to tell those who are telling me I should take his name that he disagrees and he's not about the sexism you're spewing. Though he does now want to send mother-in-law a Christmas card from the Millers. Edit 2. You guys are being great. I woke up to many more responses than I anticipated. Thank you. Just to clarify, my son will not be calling mother-in-law Mrs. Smith. They barely have a relationship as he's still a baby and mother-in-law makes no effort. After some discussion, Jake is going to take time to figure out what he wants from mother-in-law and if he thinks that's possible. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Can I just say your marriage sounds great? The way you wanted the baby's last name to be his choice and he chose yours. There's so much love and respect here. Also, I like how he stands by your side in his mother's nonsense. You both are awesome. Not the AOP, I just assumed our son would have his. He brought it up. He said it was fair since I was doing all the work. He said if he pushed a human out of him he'd want to put his name on it. Which makes me laugh. I still let it be his choice because regardless of his name, I'm gonna love this kid. If we have a second, I may insist they get his last name. Seems fair. I am a very lucky woman, but it should be noted he wears his gross shoes through the house, so not perfect. But he says I sleep like an MMA fighter, so I suppose we're even. OP responds to a comment that answers many points. Here. I don't see a reason why you were angry when she told you about your father's reaction. Seems a pretty valid point, the importance that the last name has for your father and her. This observation doesn't excuse her actions, but still a good point. I mean, for what you have said, seems like your dad would have made some nasty comments, but his crying shows how important it is for some people. Mother-in-law divorced the man whose last name she took. It wasn't even her original name. And she has another son who is going to have kids. My husband wasn't her only option. And my father lost 2 sons. My dad's reaction comes from a very different emotional place. And frankly, he knew he wasn't entitled to it. He simply appreciates it. Even father-in-law didn't care. And again, this decision was made by my husband, with my full support. Why isn't she mad at him? I'm not sure if this is how you should say it, taste of her own medicine. It was a good move to show her how unrespectful she was, doing the same, and calling her by her last name was a good move indeed. But now that she is taking accountability, I think that's the word, it would be a jerk move to keep calling her in that way. Maybe you can use this to put boundaries to her actions, so it would be smart to get an agreement instead of keeping the last name war. I'm not gonna keep calling her that. I'm currently discussing with my husband what we should do. Verdict, not the asshole. Update October 23rd, 2020. Jake and I appreciated all the support. Though Jake wants the direct messengers to know that he's okay with me taking his balls because he loses everything anyway. This brought him a good chuckle before the serious talk. We both also want to be very clear that taking his name was never on the table, nor does he care. I also want to say I know how great Jake is. Though since the post he's been demanding, I thank the world's best husband anytime he does something for me. His humor is my favorite part of him. Because it's his mom, I let him decide how to handle it. We both agreed that our son would obviously know mother-in-law as his grandma, but he wouldn't have a relationship with her unless she addressed the blatant favoritism. That conversation did not go well. She denied having favorites, lied about pretty much everything, then told me the compromise she was willing to make was that if she had to accept me for who I am, being that I kept that name, I'd have to accept her for who she is. I didn't respond before Jake ripped into her about how she didn't get to make demands, that she was critical of me, assumed things that he already told her weren't true, that this conversation was happening because we didn't accept who she was. He said if he ever heard her make another comment about the Miller last name, he'd take it. She started crying about losing her family and he hung up. One sister-in-law, who is mother-in-law's favorite child, sent me a nasty message including the line, "I wonder if your dead brother would be happy if you used him to break mother-in-law's heart." I sent the screenshot to mother-in-law and said, "Call off your dog or I'll take her to the pound." I have sent a screenshot of that to anyone who has tried to question me. If they tried to defend mother-in-law or sister-in-law, I blocked them. Word got around quickly about this, and now sister-in-law is all but cut out of father-in-law's side of the family. Even father-in-law has come down on her hard. Sister-in-law is desperately trying to apologize and fix this. She even allowed Jake to read everything mother-in-law sent to her about my last name. I tried to read some of it but stopped. I don't want to be angry. I'm taking time to decide how to handle this. I am happy to be done with mother-in-law. She never really bothered me. It does take a lot to get to me. But I don't want her behavior and attitudes being normalized with my son. I wasn't prepared for motherhood to have such a strong effect. Jake did admit he gave son my last name for my dad. Years ago my dad asked if Jake was going to propose to me. Jake said if my dad wanted to know he would give him a heads up, but he wouldn't ask for his blessing or permission. In many more words, Dad said he never had any expectations of that. He didn't worry about gender roles, though he was glad he would gain a son again. Jake didn't feel obligated. He just wanted to do that for my dad. Sincerely, thank you all. Edit. Hey everyone, I did not expect to wake up to the amount of messages I did. I appreciate them all. Jake takes both the compliments and the insults. As do I. I also want to clear up some questions. Yes, this is real, but I'm not going to prove that. Mother-in-law took father-in-law's name. They are divorced. They have 2 daughters and 2 sons. Brother-in-law intends to have children and will pass on the Smith name. Sister-in-law has a daughter who has sister-in-law's husband's name. Sister-in-law also took his name. The youngest sister-in-law is the one who sent the text. I'm not going to apologize for how I spoke to mother-in-law after she encouraged her daughter to use my brother like that. There's text proof that mother-in-law did this. Sister-in-law showed Jake. I have no intentions on seeking therapy or a relationship with either of them, and that's the most that can be asked of me in this upset state. If when we have a second child, I always intended for them to get Jake's last name. Jake knows and is cool with it. Jake is willing to be called by my last name, but I doubt he'll actually change it. Neither of us is willing to do paperwork out of spite either. Yes, I still cry remembering my dad crying about this. I always assumed Jake did this for this reason. He really is a great man. Relevant comments. Commenter 2. You've got yourself a great husband. Not a lot of people could stand their ground like he did. Good luck to both of you and your little son OP. He's always been able to stand up for himself. I won't say it didn't get to him, especially what his sister did, but he just runs it out. He may also make himself a world's best husband t-shirt if he sees more compliments. But he does deserve it. And thank you. Commenter 3. Would he consider changing his name to Miller, or would that just pour more gasoline on the fire? OP. Yes, he would, but he tries not to let anger make his decisions. I also don't think he would because of the paperwork required, and he does everything he can to avoid it, including bribing me to do it. Commenter 4. That line? Call your dog off or I'll take her to the pound so bloody good. OP. I didn't mean it violently either. Just keep your yapping dog in your yard or I'll make it someone else's problem. Sister-in-law is still yapping, just more whiny now. I don't think she realized her family would draw a line in the sand. The majority aren't necessarily taking our side, but it's clear they're staying out of it because defending her isn't really an option. Commenter 5. I'm glad OP and her husband feel at peace, but Jesus fucking Christ, they need to go NC with the mother-in-law before she can damage their child with her favoritism of the other grandchild and her general unhinged pettiness. Commenter 6. 100% unless mother-in-law's behavior takes a complete 180, OP's kid will notice the favoritism and it will hurt. I can say from experience. My dad's sister was the favorite child, and by extension, her kid ended up being the favorite grandchild, and my Nana wasn't shy about it. My other grandmother actually took her aside at one point and told her that I wasn't stupid and eventually I'd be old enough to notice the blatant favoritism and choose how I wanted to deal with it. Sure enough, I got to age 16 and sent my Nana my prom photos on Messenger. She ignored them completely, not even a "you looked great" message, while at the same time posting my cousin's prom photos all over Facebook talking about how beautiful she was. I blocked her and I haven't bothered speaking to her in the 8 years since. It was the straw that broke the camel's back after a decade and a half of my cousin getting better presents, dictating all our outings, getting her way with tantrums, and being automatically believed when she would get me in trouble for things she did. Commenter 7. Same thing with my grandmother. She treated my dad's sister's children so much better than us. She was awful to us growing up while treating them like princesses. It's funny now how much she has changed her ways now that we are all grown and she finally realized that my cousins are shit. It's a bit too late now. She needed to treat us better as children, not pretend all is well now that we are all in our late 40s and 50s. My autistic brother spent over 400 pounds of my hard-earned money on Lego, and my mom supports this. I, 14, have a brother 16 who has autism and I just can't stand it anymore. Before you go and make assumptions, let me get this out of the way. He's not like the autistic people you see on the news or online. He's a perfectly functional, intelligent person. However, he becomes violent when he doesn't get his way, and his brain doesn't get toilet messages, regularly pisses, shits himself. The thing with him is, these things only happen at home. Anywhere else, he doesn't have any problems with accidents in his pants. What happened today drove me over the edge to the point of writing this. For context, here's the usual routine. I woke up to him on my bed hitting me repeatedly. My parents are downstairs making breakfast, oblivious to this. He won't stop, so I shout for my mom. She comes upstairs, gets him off me by rewarding him with chocolate, and proceeds to yell at me for shouting at her, and confiscate my electronics for an hour. When I get home from school, all is fine. I do some homework and go on the Xbox. After around 30 minutes on the Xbox, he does the same thing. Hits me over and over, leaving me with no choice but to call for my mom. She again rewards him for stopping, before proceeding to tell me off and confiscate my electronics for the rest of the day. I'm writing this with the phone one of my friends bought for me, which I keep under my bed, as this is the only way I get to use technology for over 40 minutes a day. A reminder that this is the daily routine and has been occurring for at least 5 years. However, what happened today was even worse. He'd seen a Lego set that he wanted and beat me up until he got it. I shouted for my mom, but this time, she did something different. She let him order all the Lego he wanted, from my debit card. I've been saving up doing my paper round for 2 years to buy a PC, and he just blew 400 pounds of my money on Lego. I hate this. I hate my life. It feels like I'm only living to suffer. This post is purely me venting, and will likely not go anywhere, but I don't care. With all that said, is there anything I can do about this? I'm a minor in the UK if that helps. TLDR, my autistic brother spent over 400 pounds of my hard-earned money on Lego, and my mum supports this edit. Thanks for all the supportive comments. I didn't think anyone would care. Edit 2,000 upvotes. You guys are insane. I didn't think anyone would care about this, but obviously you guys do. I'm writing an update to answer some of your questions, and explain my next moves. Again, thank you all so much for all of the support update. First, I just want to say thank you. Thank you all so much for all the support on the original post and all of your ideas in the comments. I tried to reply to every comment, but there are so many that I can't do that, although I do read them all. Second, I want to do a quick FAQ as many comments are asking the same thing. So here goes. Move in with another family member, tell another family member. They all live 100 plus miles away and don't believe that it's serious. You can get your money back as you're the cardholder. Nope, I need a legal guardian to go into the bank with me to do that. And finally, hit him back. I am a weak, 5 foot tall 14-year-old. He is a strong, 6 foot tall 16-year-old. This would cause more harm to me because he would attack back harder, and my mum would punish me more. Next, to the people who have offered me money in PMs in the comments. Thank you all so much for the offer, but I'm not going to accept anything. As I've come to realize, the assault is far more serious than the money at the end of the day. Finally, on to my plan. After reading literally 100s of comments, I've decided that the best course of action is to leg it out of school to the police station on Wednesday, and show them my collected video evidence and the bruises on my arms. Again, thank you all so much for your advice. Please let me know if this is what I should do or if there's a better alternative. Edit, just got 3 videos of this story in a row on TikTok. That's absolutely crazy. My fiancé is taking my last name. His parents are threatening not to come to our wedding. How do we handle this? January 31st, 2024. My fiancé, Alex, 21 years old, and I, 22 years old, have been together for 6 years and are getting married this year. I never cared much about my last name, but after some recent family events, I realized I want to keep mine. Alex didn't mind and chose to change his last name so we'd match. Upon finding out, Alex's parents, Lisa and Luke, yelled at him. Lisa cussed him out, so my parents let him stay with us for the last week of winter break. We were home on break from college and live a few miles apart. Lisa and Luke say Alex is destroying and disowning his family, publicly humiliating them, and claim I'm stripping him of his manhood. They told us we're unbiblical and that women should submit. To them, it's political too. They said the queer community is the reason we're susceptible to this. Transgender people are to blame, and America is in its downfall. This is just another sign. Alex has received many texts from Lisa, calling him hateful, cruel, and cold, asking how he can let her suffer. The meetings Alex had with his parents went poorly. They told him they wanted to see him and not talk about the name, but then did. One meeting involved both sets of parents. Lisa and Luke talked 90% of the time before getting up and leaving. They're mad Alex stayed with us and said even if we go with his name, they'd resent us and my family for supporting us. Lisa threatened to cut Alex off, saying he won't get another penny. They had planned to contribute to our wedding, stating there were no strings attached and they fund his college apartment. Lisa said this is the worst thing to happen to her since losing her first baby, and that it's worse than if Alex had gotten me pregnant, killed someone drunk driving, or was gay. She's telling Alex that his grandparents will have to move to assisted living from heartbreak, and Luke keeps telling Alex his choice is hurting people. Their main reason seems to be that it is tradition and that they want the last name carried on. It's not an uncommon last name. I also learned that Lisa borderline tried to talk Alex out of proposing. Alex asked me to marry him anyway, and Lisa called my mom in the midst of the engagement excitement to share her disapproval. They said that they get a say until Alex is married, and that's when they'll leave us be. Lisa and Luke keep texting Alex and my parents, but I have never received anything. They openly dislike me now, bad-mouthing me whether I'm there or not. I've decided my relationship with Lisa and Luke is over. It was rocky before as they tried to push their religion onto me numerous times. Alex is deciding how much more he can give. He hasn't taken a harsh tone or spoken rudely to his parents, but is tired. Now his parents say if Alex won't move back home, their financial support ends. They say the family won't come to the wedding, and one of his siblings has actually left the wedding party. Obviously, I have decided to stay mostly away from Lisa and Luke now, but they are Alex's family. With the wedding still coming up, we're unsure how to move forward. Too long, didn't read. My male fiancé is taking my last name. His parents are freaking out because I'm the woman and should take him. The verbal and emotional abuse are out of control, and they're threatening not to attend the wedding. Edit to add, Lisa and Luke's financial support is not necessary, and the wedding will proceed with or without it. Just thought it relevant to point out that the money that was offered no strings attached clearly does have strings. We know we are young and are still getting married after spending 6 years together. Postponing the wedding isn't something we're willing to do. Relevant comments. When asked if in-laws would accept both last names, the original poster, OOP, replied, apparently not, as his parents said it would make no difference. Since they aren't keen on using both names anyway, they decided against it. For instance, one commenter stated, the only people that should be at your wedding are those who want to celebrate your relationship. It sounds like they don't. Another person remarked, it seems he has valid reasons for not wanting to be associated with that last name anymore. Yes, it's unconventional, and people might look at him oddly for it, but they can just mind their own business. If you're happy and he's happy, that's all that matters. Furthermore, someone suggested, stop discussing it until after the wedding. For the rest of your life, stop sharing details about your lives with these people. Have your fiancé agree to gray rocking them moving forward, or there will be arguments about baby names and other issues in the future. The first time anyone knew my baby's name was in our birth announcement. Additionally, another commenter advised, simply say, we will miss you. Any other response will only encourage them to meddle more in the future. Moreover, a user pointed out, your future in-laws are acting like overgrown toddlers. For both your sakes, I hope they go no contact with both of you forever because the loss of their financial support is a small price to pay for freedom from their controlling behavior. However, if they refuse to leave you alone, your fiancé will need to develop strong boundaries. You two should consider premarital counseling before planning much more of the wedding, as it's crucial to ensure you're prepared to handle your future together. OP responded, the price is most certainly worth the freedom. We're looking into premarital counseling. Thank you. Update July 7, 2024, 5 months later. Alex and I got married last month, and everything was absolutely beautiful. Since my original post. After more months of emotional and verbal abuse, Alex made the difficult decision that his parents were no longer welcome at our wedding. He explained that he couldn't trust them to respect his boundaries, respect us at all, or respect what the event was about. As expected, they freaked out, asking if he was trapped and needed help, saying everything had become about me, the OP, and telling him he'd been isolated from everyone he loves. We're not sure what story they told Alex's extended family. Alex reached out to everyone to explain what had been going on, but every response he received was more disgust toward his name choice, refusal of wedding invitations, and saying he needed to apologize, grovel, and fix the family. Most of Lisa's family were the ones talking the most about how dishonorable he was being and how he was breaking apart the family. Interesting, seeing none of them share Lisa and Luke's last name. Luke's family does. Luckily, only one invitation was returned with nasty notes inside, but the rest of the digital responses took Lisa and Luke's side, berated Alex for doing this near the anniversary of the death of Lisa's first child, and called him cruel and hateful. For context, Lisa's first child passed away a few days after birth, over 25 years ago. Alex says there has never been any remembrance that he knows of, and they do nothing on the anniversary. He doesn't even know the date of the anniversary. Lisa and Luke explained what happened once when he was young and never mentioned anything again. We're unsure why it's all coming back up now, after presenting as generally unimportant his whole life. Apparently, this drama being 4 months from the anniversary was disrespectful. His sister Alice also went off the rails. After checking in to see how Alex was doing, Alice got angry that he wanted to discuss things over text instead of on the phone. It became obvious that she wanted him on the phone to berate him, because she ranted about how he was steamrolling their parents and wasn't really an adult because he wasn't married yet. She said she had encouraged Lisa and Luke to cut him off long ago and that I, wasn't acting like family since I stopped letting her follow my Instagram account. This was after she dropped out as a bridesmaid and made it clear she didn't support our marriage. I decided not everyone gets full access to my life. As his only sibling, it was devastating for Alex to watch Alice spiral into fully taking their parents' side, after initially leading him to believe she had his back and was supportive. After saying not to expect her and Alex's bill at the wedding, there's been no further contact since Alice refuses to speak to him unless he'll talk on the phone. At this point, he won't do any phone calls as we'd rather have a record of everything that goes down. Many people tried to talk to Lisa and Luke, my own parents, mutual friends, etc., to encourage them to choose the relationship and explain that the damage they were causing wasn't worth the loss they'd endure. It seemed to have no effect. Alex was quick to become no longer financially dependent on his parents. We've changed his phone plan, reclaimed all his bills from Lisa and Luke, fully moved him out, and finished college. We're not sure if they attended graduation. They texted Alex the day before to say they'd be there but then turned off their location services. Graduation day was stressful and nerve-wracking, with Alex not knowing if they'd make a scene or corner him. He left as soon as he walked across the stage and made it to his car with no interactions. Since then, as most Redditors suggested, we've been nearly no contact with Lisa and Luke. We spent the first 6 weeks of summer finishing wedding details, and our day last month was gorgeous. Alex received no communication between graduation and the wedding, and has no plans to continue their relationship without an apology. Lisa and Luke did not show up to the wedding or say anything on the day of. The only recent change is Lisa unfollowing and unfriending both of us and my family on all social media. For me, my in-law relationships are basically over, apology or not. Learning they'd never supported our engagement, ignoring my existence, and hating me because of my political and religious beliefs is enough for me not to keep contact. Thank you, Redditors, for your kind help and good wishes. Our day was truly perfect and straight out of a fairy tale, and we're looking forward to the next chapter of our lives, with hopefully less drama. Too long, didn't read? Parents were uninvited to the wedding. Sister flipped a switch. Currently no contact with all. Wedding day was beautiful and not dramatic. Relevant comments. One commenter remarked, "Wow, just wow. How can a whole family implode over something as ridiculous as a last name change?" Had I read the text without seeing it being about that, I'd have thought the young man at least had molested animals or children. Geez. Another observed, "That's because it's not about the last name. The last name was the straw that broke the camel's back." In the original post, OP said the in-laws already didn't like her. There is way more going on here than reported. A different perspective was shared. It sounds like they had total control over him and objected to losing the right to make his choices. Totally normal in small amounts when a kid reaches this stage of life, but for a certain kind of family, they can't let the baby grow up without severing everything. One user offered a warning. "Please be aware that if you are choosing to have children, they might come at y'all full force again. Be prepared." Another shared a personal anecdote. "My friend's sister went through something similar. The couple had entertained the idea of creating a new family name and the groom's mom flipped out. Threatened to remove financial support, they didn't need it, and suddenly the racism came out after 10 years of holding it in. Suddenly the bride's family were those people, aka not white. It was a beautiful ceremony. The mom didn't show up and now she has to live with never seeing her only son. The irony is that the couple on their own decided that they weren't going to change it a few days before the wedding. But by then the groom went no contact due to the blatant disrespect and racism hurled at his wife's family. One congratulated the couple, saying, "Congratulations and I'm happy your wedding, and his graduation, went off without a hitch. I'm proud that he chose to stick to his wants rather than let his family bully him into submission. Stay no contact. Your lives will be more peaceful." Suggest some therapy for him if he's struggling with all this though. There are a lot of emotional issues that come with cutting family out. Best wishes to you both. Adding a practical point, another user said, I don't understand why anyone, male or female, changes their name in the first place in the modern era. Huge pain in the ass to do so, especially with professional licenses, college records, SS, passports, and so on. But yeah, his family is going overboard, by a lot. I can see why he would change his name. Disassociate from the wackadoodles. Sorry for the family strife, but congratulations on the marriage. Another shared a lighthearted story. My husband and I have joked about hyphenating our last names. 11 letters plus 9 letters, both convoluted Dutch names that are hard to spell. Well, hard for folks here in Canada which are in Amsterdam to pronounce my last name better than I can. LOL. No one has given us a hard time about both of us keeping our names. I think the only people who had any sort of comment on it were my parents, and that was just from a practicality standpoint. They've moved provinces a few times and Mom had to bring name change documentation with her every time she changed her ID to reflect her current province. I was warned that it could be a potential headache if I changed my name, but that was it. Someone else shared their personal dilemma. My partner has a name that's a bit funny in our language, derived from the name of a trade, and a pain to write and pronounce in English. Not so bad in our local language, just long, as it's also 11 letters. I work in an English-speaking environment, and trying to explain to people how to pronounce something similar to Hadzhiski doesn't sound very appealing. It's not the real name but has a lot of similar sounds. But if we marry, I would prefer to keep mine, not so much because of the pronunciation. I just don't like how it sounds with my first name. Hyphenating sounds like a pain, and my full name would become 35 characters. However, if I kept my last name and we have kids with his last name, I will have to always carry a document proving the kids are mine. So no ideal solution here. His family likely won't be too happy if I kept mine, but they might just get over it if we finally marry. I think they gave up on any of their kids getting married years ago. We are all happily cohabiting without making it official. Adding another anecdote, a user said, my dad died, and when my mom remarried, she kept my dad's name. She hated her maiden name and didn't want to take his long, convoluted last name. Her new husband didn't care at all. Nobody really cared. It's her name. She can do what she wants. I changed my name when I got married. It didn't last, and I just went back to my maiden name with no problem at all. My birth certificate goes first name, middle name, married last name, maiden name. So I can use my maiden without bureaucracy. I'm having the same thoughts as my mom. This is my name, and I'm keeping it. A user shared a modern perspective. I think I'm going to encourage my kids to make up a new last name with their partners rather than pick one even. And doing it all over again, I might have chosen to do so with my wife too, but we share my last name. There are 4 last names associated with your grandparents, 8 with your great-grandparents, and double that for your SO2. And so my last name comes from some traceable line of sons only. Okay. I don't think that makes them necessarily any cooler or more special than maternal ancestors, or my grandma's ancestors. Frankly, I'm sure a lot of the men in that particular line of my ancestry sucked anyway. I don't feel like there's a really strong genealogical attachment to any singular family name unless someone becomes famous enough to make it a brand. So I think people should just pick and build their own family name or choose one from the most recent approximately 16 that they feel the most proud of, attached to. Lastly, someone shared their personal experience with familial control. It's very little to do with the name itself and everything to do with ownership. My husband and I double-barreled our last names to take each other's, so it was totally fair, and his parents still freaked the fuck out. It was nothing about the name or the fairness of the thing and everything to do with the fact it symbolized him growing as an autonomous adult, and they couldn't handle it. Which might be understandable, even if not acceptable if he was a young adult barely out of the house, but he was in his 30s with a career, property, and a PhD. But that didn't matter to them. In their eyes, children remain property and are mere accessories rather than people. My husband is a doctor. Am I the asshole for wanting him to be by my side holding my hand during childbirth instead of delivering our baby? I originally posted this in Am I the Asshole, and it was removed. I can't see any of the comments now. I, 35, am 7 months pregnant. I am married to a family medicine doctor, 35, and we've been together for 10 years. This is a throwaway account on Reddit because my sister-in-law follows me on Reddit and reports everything to my husband. I'm reaching out to all of you to ask for advice on a fight my husband and I are having about our birth plan. My husband really wants to deliver the baby, which I can kind of understand. It's not uncommon for doctors to deliver their own child. There is still an obstetrician gynecologist there, monitoring everything. And the doctor father steps in at the last minute as the mother is crowning to just catch the baby. My husband has, I guess, always dreamed of being the one to pull the baby out, while I pictured it very differently. I thought he would be up by my head, holding my hand and helping me through it. He says he will do that, but the easiest part is the very end where I won't need him anyway. He said if I really want someone there, his mom can step in. I've been on my own since I was a kid living in my car, so I don't have anyone I'd want in there with me except him. I don't really even want his mom in there. She's great, but he's my person. I know it would be cool for him to deliver our baby, but I really feel like I need him there. I personally didn't want our doctors to know he was a doctor because as soon as any of my doctors, or even our veterinarian, finds out he's a doctor, they talk exclusively to him. I don't even want him to go to the prenatal appointments anymore because no one talks to me. They all talk to him, and I can't ask my questions to anyone but my husband at home. But he's already told everyone he'll be delivering his first baby. I guess I don't want this because I wanted him to be there as a husband and a father and not a doctor. I see him as a doctor 95% of the time, and I wanted to experience this with my husband and not my husband the doctor. I wanted him to be there for me as this is my first birth and I'm terrified. He just keeps telling me I'll be fine. He pulled in friends and family who also don't understand my point of view. They said this is his first child too and to just let him have this since I had the honor of being pregnant. I just really wanted him to hold my hand all the way through it and be able to share this experience as parents and people instead of a medical professional. I was hoping we could see the baby at the same time and just be equals in this. Am I being selfish for wanting this to be my way? Relevant comments from all subreddits. Commenter. He pulled in friends, family who also don't understand my POV. They said this is his first child too and to just let him have this since I had the honor of being pregnant. Who are these people? And why does everyone defer to your husband this way? Your request is totally reasonable and your husband's lack of understanding is pretty glaring. NTAOP, his mom, sisters, and our really close friends that I guess are technically more his friends than mine. I haven't brought it up to my friends because I'm just not comfortable having our friends weigh into our relationship the way he is. I think his mom just likes his plan because it pulls her into the room, which I attempted to veto early on. I do love her so much, but I wanted this to be our experience. Commenter, downvoted, NTA. But you both have visions of how your baby will be born, so you need to talk it out. Chances are the very last part of the birth you are not going to be holding hands. He's going to be with you in the delivery room either way, but this is something the two of you need to resolve. It's not enough to say, I want. Find a compromise. For example, if he holds your hand the entire time you're in labor and only steps in as doctor for a few minutes of actual birth, wouldn't you both have a win? Focus on having a healthy baby and creating a happy family instead of on scenes you've created in your imagination, and that applies to both of you. OP, I don't see that as a compromise. That's exactly what he wants to have happen. But the entire birthing process is incredibly emotional and exhausting. I don't want him to step away for those moments because they are what I picture to be the most painful and exhausting. I want him with me until the baby is out and we can hold her. I don't want to be abandoned during my birth while he and the other doctors catch the baby and begin the baby's workup. He's going to deliver the baby and hold the baby all while I won't be able to see anything because my legs will be in the air. I'll miss my husband holding and seeing my baby for the first time, and I'll feel completely by myself and like I'm missing out on those crucial first moments. Maybe you're not a woman, but nothing sounds worse to me than having my legs in the stirrups, immediately post-birth with a sheet draped over my legs where I can't see my husband or baby meeting for the first time. Commenter, deleted, downvoted. I think you're overestimating what your attention span will be like in those moments. My mom let my dad catch both of their babies, and she told me that when she was doing those final pushes, she didn't care where my dad was. All she wanted was to get the baby out. She also said it meant a lot to see the joy on my dad's face, and having him hand her the baby instead of some random doctor or nurse made the bonding process more special. I'm not telling you this to change your mind. I'm just giving you an idea of what that moment could be like. OP, I just don't see it playing out that way. If he is there to catch the baby, he's going to want to start doing some of the exams, and we're already having so much trouble getting the doctors to talk to me and keep me informed. It just feels like another link I'll lose to the situation to actually be kept up to date and prioritized in the moment. I know that sounds really silly, But I've been sitting in on my ultrasound appointments and prenatal appointments, and they are focused on the belly, but not on me. Pretty much everyone talks exclusively to my husband. It's been a huge challenge to feel like I'm a part of it and not just coincidentally caring for the baby. Commenter. Tell him that you've had to do everything by yourself your whole life already. This is not one of the things you can do by yourself, and you want him there when it comes out. You just want support once from the start to finish. It's lonely always having to take yourself places, to teach yourself, entertain yourself, and so on. And it's exhausting. Especially growing up like that your whole childhood, knowing people can just up and leave. Maybe tell him you're feeling so effing lonely, that you just want him to be there. If he doesn't understand, you may as well do this by yourself again. Surely the nurse can tell him to stay with you, and now is not the right time, Mr. Doctor, sir. Oh, and it's out. Sorry, congratulations your parents. OP, I'm going through so many comments, but I stopped and read yours 50 times and it hit me really hard. This is it. This is why I feel the way I do. Thank you so much. Thank you. Update comment 1. Not sure the right way to update. Posting it here as well. Update. I am going to confront him tonight when he gets home. He's already going to be upset because we both have restrictions on how much time we spend on social media sites, and I have significantly surpassed that today and yesterday, which he'll know as soon as he reviews the router logs. I'm hopeful I can catch him before that makes him too upset. I did reach out to some of our mutual friends just to see what he has told them for why this is so important to him, only to learn he never discussed this with them. I think he made up what he has been saying. They were really shocked to learn we've been having this disagreement and were actually quite supportive of an expectant mother controlling her birth plan. I'm quite nervous about his reaction to this as well, and I'd like to get ahead of this. Wish me luck and cross your fingers for me. Update comment 2. I first want to say, thank you. Thank you every single one of you who took the time to reply, send messages, check up on me, send me messages, and share your stories. I've read so much more than I'll ever be able to respond to. Thank you. Those who took the time to share resources and volunteer your own time, you're angels in the flesh. Thank you. I'm so incredibly touched by this overwhelming outpour of love and support. Also, thank you to even the people who told me I was selfish or crazy or any other derogative you chose to use. I'm not sure what helped me more, the people posing such great questions about if I felt safe, comfortable, loved, or the people telling me I was the terrible person. Something about attempting to reread my story as an outsider and seeing the comments where Redditors told me I was in fact the problem broke something in me, and I finally saw through the haze. But hey, maybe try to be nicer to strangers on the internet and consider your words more carefully. We're all people trying to get through life. So many of you are kind, caring, and loving individuals. Thank you for caring about some random things on the internet. I don't even have words. I can't say a whole lot about these last few days. So much has happened that I will be processing for years to come. All I can say is I am safe and I am free. Read into that as you will. My next steps are leaving this chapter of my life behind. I'm moving out of this city and I'm going to try starting again somewhere new. Somewhere beautiful where every time I look outside, it's hard to believe it's real life. I've always felt drawn to the mountains with all of their beauty and might. I don't plan to ever log into this account or even Reddit ever again. I did the same thing at 16. And I'm hopeful these last few decades have set me up for more success than I had the first time chasing a new start. If you read my story, and you relate to it in any way, or you too feel smothered, voiceless, and alone every single day locked in the house with someone who is supposed to love you, I just want you to know what I now know. That isn't normal. That isn't what life is supposed to be. There are people you can rely on, and strangers can be your best friend. The cost may be steep, but the cost to stay is so much more. Farm this post for all of the comments and support available. I pass it on to you and beg you to use what resources you can find. The sheer volume of personal messages I received from people in the same boat, people sharing support, people checking in to make sure I was okay. There's such a community here, and they will help you before you even realize you need it. I'm not sure what's next, and that's terrifying but also refreshing. I haven't had that in so many years. My husband is fucking in love with another woman and wants to try polyamory. I feel like I'm the third person in my own story. Hi. I've been married to my hubby for 4 years and we've been together for 12 years. After a lot of financial struggle, we bought a house and we are now planning to get kids. Thing is, a few months ago my husband felt sick and had to stay home for a while. He decided to pick up an online game and started having weekly sessions with a group of players. Among them is a girl, 30 I think, and long story short, he fell in love with her. He broke down crying a month ago and admitted it. He told me it built up so gradually he didn't understand how he felt until it was too late. They started texting privately after meeting and eventually had one-on-one calls together. Then at some point he said, she told him she was in love with him and he realized it was mutual. He said he told her it was impossible but loved her too. They tried to be just friends but they couldn't resist and continued to show affection for each other. He showed me the texts, but also ventured into sexting. She asked if she could meet him face to face but he refused. So he told me all of this, apologized over and over again and told me he couldn't control himself, and while he loved us both, it was me he would choose no matter what. I was still very upset and slept at a friend's that night to gather my thoughts. I decided to forgive him because he clearly felt guilt and wanted to work it out. I told him that while I was deeply hurt, I still appreciated him coming forward to me and being honest about what happened. We got into long conversations about how we were feeling in our relationship. I accepted he could love someone else but said I didn't like how he handled it. He agreed. And then yesterday he asked if I was comfortable opening up the marriage to polyamory. He said he still wanted to live with me and have kids but can't erase nor ignore the feelings he has for her. He says he wants to do it right and let us both see other people, with clear boundaries and communication, and still be present for one another. I'm gonna be honest, it made me very uncomfortable at first. We have several friends who are poly. I know more or less how it works. But I never really thought about getting into it myself. I am not against it. It just never crossed my mind before. I am trying to think it through, but it's a lot to take in. Sorry, my writing is probably messy, but it's kind of hard to focus. I guess it's too early to decide and we have a lot more to discuss beforehand. But still, could you guys give me your opinions on this? Thanks a lot. Top comments. Commenter 1. I'd be divorcing so fast. Dog of the bone. So he cheated and now wants to be able to keep cheating by calling it poly, LOL. Come on. Do not have kids with this man for the love of God, and if you have any self-respect you'll be serving him divorce papers as soon as possible. Sorry your husband is a cheating ass. Swamp cats. You got married under the assumption you would remain monogamous. He is trying to fundamentally change the nature of your relationship. If I were you, I would drop any attempts at conceiving and figure out your next steps. Personally, I would not stay with someone who desired an open relationship. You need to decide if it's something you're willing to entertain or not. Update 1. Hey guys, first off, sorry I didn't reply to all your comments. I am very thankful for them. They helped me realize hard, but fair truths about the whole situation. I waited for a bit to think about it all and had multiple long discussions with my husband. I wanted to confront him before making a final decision. To answer some of your questions, the other girl wanted to meet him, but they never did. Partly because my husband refused, but honestly, mostly because she lives too far from here. I still got checked for sexually transmitted diseases, though, and I'm clean. Yay. As for our polyamory friends, they apparently were the ones who suggested he go down the polyamory road. I stopped talking to them for now. I'll deal with the bigger problem first. I told him his actions hurt me deeply, and that while I appreciated him admitting his affair, it was still infidelity. I told him what you guys said, that turning it into polyamory was merely greenlighting the affair after the fact. That polyamory should be built on mutual trust and communication, which he already broke. That I didn't feel respected. It destroyed him. He said he already knew, deep down, but didn't want to admit it, neither to me nor to himself. We both screamed and cried a lot. He finally admitted he wanted to open the marriage for selfish reasons. He is very sorry. He cut off contact with the other girl, let me fully access his computer and phone, and now wants to go to counseling to repair our relationship and marriage. He has shown me a lot of affection and attention since then, although he admits to himself it's sometimes out of guilt and not just out of pure love. And now I want to make it work too, but am I? Or is it a sunk cost fallacy? I don't know. Our first session is in 2 months, the earliest we could get, and every day I change my mind. Literally yesterday I wanted to leave him, while today I think it's worth giving it a try. Because we've known each other for so long, we understand each other on a very deep level, share a lot of interests, and have already built so much together. He was there for me during hard parts of my life. He took responsibility for his actions, and is really trying. Plus, if I leave him, I'd have to start my life nearly from scratch. Find a new place to live. Go back to dating for the first time in 12 years. I don't want to lose everything. It sounds very hard and scary. Am I not too old for this? But at the same time, that's a form of denial, isn't it? It doesn't matter if those years were good. It's not going to be the same. Even if he gains my trust back, even if I forgive him, I'll never forget. I think he is genuinely remorseful, but isn't it too late for that? I am too empathetic. Him being present now doesn't erase what was done. Do I want to stay not because I still believe in this relationship, but because I don't have the strength to ask for a divorce? Because it's the easy choice, some kind of codependency? I have no idea. I can picture both paths clearly, and it's tearing me apart. I am lost, maybe even more than I was when I wrote my previous post. I've lost sleep and appetite, and I'm not sure I enjoy anything in my life anymore. I booked an appointment with a psychologist, for me alone, to help with this whole thing. I am sorry. At this point, I am rambling. I know I am the only one who can decide what's okay and comfortable for me or not. It's ultimately my choice, and my choice only. The emotional hell I am going through just makes thinking about that choice very hard and paralyzing. I'll go to both therapies and try to see what to do from here. I'll try to update, but it's probably going to take a while. I am sorry. I want to thank you again for your support, and I am sending you guys a lot of love. Edit. A couple of infos I should have mentioned but didn't because putting all of that into writing without omitting something is much harder than I thought. He cut off contact with her because once he told him he was married and wanted us both, she just ran away and broke up with him. There are times since then where my husband starts feeling sad or angry because of what's basically withdrawal. And for that he's smart, at least sensible enough not to blame me. What kind of marriage did we have before this crisis? It will sound so naive. It's my first and only romantic relationship. We were very close and basically grew as adults together. We could talk about anything and understand each other. We shared the same values and interests. What changed, I think, is that we got into a routine and he got bored. During our argument, he said he was addicted to the attention the girl was giving him and that he felt I didn't show him I was in love with him enough anymore. I told him that even if it was true, he should have told me instead of having an affair. On one hand, I have my faults too, and I could accept this as one of them. On the other, I was taking care of him in the house while he was sick. I don't think he believes it. I don't think he means it. But it makes me wonder whether I was actually a good wife for him, even though I am not responsible for his actions. Thanks again for your support, y'all. It's a lot to process, but it helps me so much. Relevant comments. OP on if she and her husband have kids and plans on getting counseling. OP, kids are off the table. If we do go into counseling and it goes exceptionally well, maybe we'll talk about it. But for now, the distrust is already there. He says I love you, but I never know whether it's to regain my trust, whether he means it or not. Even if he does he love me or is it a lie he tells himself? Dog of the bone. If you choose to stay, don't be surprised if in a year you find him talking to someone again. Cheaters are sneaky. They'll show remorse and swear they've changed. Meanwhile, they're smirking inside because they've started a new affair and think they can get away with it this time. OP. Thank you. It's obvious and well known. Once a cheater, always a cheater. But reading it helps me fight denial. I really need to break up with him. If not for myself, just to show him that actions have consequences. Final update. Too long, didn't read, we are divorcing, hooray. Trigger warning, emotional affair, manipulation, self-harm threats, psychological abuse. Hey, I hope you are doing well. A huge amount of things have happened since then. I'll quickly summarize. Feel free to check my profile if you want to know more. It was a very, very unpleasant ride. So, my soon-to-be ex-husband had an emotional affair online and tried to make me green-lighted by asking for an open marriage, where we'd be allowed to have side adventures. I refused and his affair partner dumped him. He begged me to try to reconcile with him, to which I agreed, while I was actually trying to prepare my exit. We both went to individual therapy, still am. We separated temporarily 3 times, but every time I came back it went terribly. He was desperate. He kept trying to cross my boundaries, love bombing me, playing the victim, asking to touch me even though I established I didn't want to, threatening to kill himself if we were to divorce. I could go on and on. This made me finally realize, along with my therapist's help, a lot of self-reflection and my exchanges on Reddit, that I was in an abusive relationship, which is an important part, actually the most important part, of this update. Please look up definitions and examples of abuse, because I had no idea that what my husband had been doing all these years, even before the affair, counted as such. In his case, it was psychological abuse, manipulation, gaslighting, guilt tripping, blame shifting, emotional blackmail, nothing aggressive or mean, which turned me into a very submissive partner over the years, always catering to his needs while erasing mine. I rationalize everything. It happened subtly and gradually, and I was too naive to see it for what it was. His emotional affair and open marriage proposal were the natural continuity of that. Of course, the more I tried to get away from him, the more manipulative he got. Now that I was aware of it, I knew what he was doing. But fighting years of conditioning, even if you recognize it and succeed, is fucking exhausting and disarming. So, earlier today, I brought a friend home to assist me. We sat down, the three of us, and I told my husband we were over and I handed him the papers. It might sound dumb, but it's genuinely one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I was terrified. Yet he agreed. He repeatedly asked me if I was sure. He reminded me of the family we were planning to have and of our best memories together. Was it all for nothing? Apparently, yes. He was heartbroken, clearly mad and frustrated. But still, he agreed. He signed them and went back to his parents for now. We still have to go through the whole procedure, separate our assets, decide what to do with the house and all. And he still wants us to go to marriage counseling. But right now, I feel free. For the first time in months. The last hours have been a mix of tears, celebration, and godly, restful sleep. And I have to thank you guys again, because my first Reddit post was the wake-up call I needed to eventually, finally, get here. Better late than never. Thank you so much. Lots of love to you all. Relevant comments. Theonist_05. He reminded me of the family we were planning to have and of our best memories together. Was it all for nothing? Apparently, yes. He was heartbroken. That's a special kind of asshole. Was it all for nothing? After cheating on his partner. He sounds like an insufferable dickhead, honestly. Congrats on your freedom. OP. I know, right? The hypocrisy. The nerves of this man. The worst part is that he appears very charming to everyone who knows him, myself included. Hell, a lot of people from our circle, who are aware of what he did, still think he's a good person who just lost himself for a while. I guess it's hard to accept that the ones we love can be terrible people too. Any decision 470. You have been through a long, hard journey, and it will take a while yet, but you are investing in yourself and your health and happiness. Good for you. Continue self-care and practice safety and security. Slow down and heal so that you will be strong and ready to seek and recognize true love. Wishing you a joyous future. You can do this. OP. Thank you. I'll do my best. I like to think the hardest part is behind me, but this story taught me to expect the worst. Whatever happens though, from now on, it's me first. I deserve love and happiness and I'll fight for it.